Hello my crafty tribe, this is Artsy Maddie and let's get creative. Today's video is part of the Pumpkin Patch Fall Pumpkin Collab and I am so excited to be a part of this. This is my second collab and Ellie from DIY from House to Home invited me to join this wonderful group of ladies. We're gonna have a playlist in our description boxes. I really hope you'll go and check it out. These are all very talented creators and I'm sure you'll see some great inspiration. So for this first pumpkin, I wanted to show you what inspired me. This gorgeous pumpkin from Kirkland's. I spotted it in someone's shopping video. So mine will differ from this pumpkin, but I just wanted to show you what inspired me. So I inflated a balloon to full size, like pretty big balloon, full size. And then I just did a quick paper mache on top of it. So I made sure that there was about 3 layers of just ripped printer paper, just white regular paper on it. So it's not going to be super strong, but it's just going to give me the form that I need to start building it. So then I'm using 2 bags of this, we're just going to call it craft string because I think it varies a little bit from like fine crochet, needlepoint. It's used for all sorts of things. So I used this roll of wrapping paper, like it's 3 rolls all together, and I would wrap the string around it 100 times. So I just mixed and matched the strings that I had, and I would do each of them just 100 wraps around that wrapping paper to get just random mix-matched bundles of string. So then once I had that done, I made 23 of them all together. So I'm going to make 23 braids to run along the outside of my pumpkin. Okay, so here I have my bunch. This is my wreath hanger on my door. So this kind of works out as a great height to work from, and then you're just kind of letting gravity help you a little bit. So I'm just going to cut the bottom of my loop here. Oh, so get it cut, and then we're going to be doing a fishtail braid. So I don't know if any of you have done this with hair, but it's just a very similar idea. So I'm going to grab a bit from the left, and take it over to the right hand side, and then a bit from the back of the left and take it over to the right hand side. So I'm doing quite a chunk. I tried doing this with smaller amounts, but it's much too finicky, so you need to be a little bit less perfection with this is the better. Okay, so just keep it kind of loose and grab quite a chunk. Like I tried doing it with smaller amounts, but it's not super forgiving. So using the bigger chunks, like I'd guess there's probably about 15 to 20 in this little section, and then just bringing that over to the opposite side. So you just keep pulling from the back and then over to the other side, and then pull from the back and then over to the other side. Now if you drop it, it's okay, it's quite forgiving to just pick it back up again and tell where your pieces line up. So again, if you drop it or you lose track, you can kind of just tell by the way that the threads are going and just pick it back up and start again. So I can tell that this was the last one to come over, and then I just need to start from the other side. So just grab from the back and pull to the opposite side. Grab from the back and pull to the opposite side. Grab from the back. And then if you get it kind of tangled like this, and then that's kind of when you let go if you had to, but usually it works itself out. That's why I couldn't do the smaller amounts, it would get too tangled. So there you go, you can see it's pretty forgiving, pretty easy to do, but I would definitely recommend kind of to grab a bigger amount here like this. And there we go, just keep working your way down. So then after my paper mache had dried, I was just gonna coat it with a coat of paint that was a little bit closer to the off-whites and creams and light tan colors that I was using. So I'm just using a mist tint that I found at Home Depot. I just thought it would be a handy color to have, so always keep an eye out for those. It was good quality paint. And then I'm just gonna take each strip and glue a little section right in the middle of the pumpkin. So right around the largest part of the balloon, like the fattest part of the pumpkin, I'm just gonna glue each strip on that middle part of the pumpkin. And then I just made sure that the top is gonna line up and leave a little bit of space for the stem. I could have left a little bit more. I didn't actually know what I was gonna use as the stem, so technically I should have left just a little bit more room for that stem, but it's okay, it all worked out. The string or the yarn is a little bit forgiving, it's kind of squishy, right? So I was able to work that around the stem. So just working my way around the balloon, you'll see kind of the variations of the string that I used. So like just mixing some of them together, like 50 wraps of one and 50 wraps of another, but just made sure that they were all 100. Some are a little fatter, some are a little thinner, but I kind of like that look. So this is where my inspiration kind of ended up going, but it's okay. I like the end product. I wasn't sure at a couple points, but I do like the way it turns out. So I fit 23 of these braids all around the fattest part of the pumpkin, and then I just ended up using this funky bit of branch that I had from the other pumpkin and glued it to the top with just lots of hot glue, got it really secured well. And then I'm going to be bringing all of these braids up to the top of the pumpkin. So I'm only going to do one little strip of glue and just make sure that the back left side of the braid is in the glue. And then they're almost turning to a point where they're vertical instead of laying flat on the pumpkin balloon. They're actually kind of laying on their side on the pumpkin balloon. So I'm sure hopefully you can kind of understand what I'm doing here, just so that they all gather together and fit at the top of the pumpkin, and then just kind of squishing them in around the stem here. So it just took a little bit of finagling, but it worked out fairly well. So that is the top of the pumpkin all done. And then we're gonna flip it over to the bottom. My boys thought this was the most funny looking thing they'd ever seen. And I did start to lose faith for just a little bit, but I do like it. It did turn out really neat. So then I just cut quite a large hole in the bottom of this pumpkin, because I'm gonna need to fold in all those braids into the inside of this pumpkin. But to give it more strength, because this is just, 3 sheets of paper kind of holding this together with glue, I decided to fill it with all the plastic. So I kept all my plastics the last couple weeks, anything that was clean and didn't have any like food in it, but just, like the toilet paper plastic that was holding all that together. And oh, it's so surprising how much plastic we have in our house. It didn't take long at all. So I just held on to those to fill my pumpkins with, just to give them more strength. So again, I am just kind of bringing the braids up and just doing that thin strip of glue and just letting the left back side of the braid touch into that glue so that they can squish together as they come closer to the top. And if they have to lay on their side a little bit, then they can do that, just to all fit in there and fit together. And this is actually really sturdy. Like, it'll be no problem to pack this away now, and I'm sure it will be just fine. There'll be no dents in it or damage to it or anything. So I'm really happy with it. It doesn't look really like the inspiration as much as I thought. I thought I was gonna maybe dip them in plaster and put them onto this balloon, but I ended up just loving the soft texture to it. It's very boho, very natural looking. I love it. So you guys might get a kick out of this. This was 3 times as a charm. So another balloon, and I decided to take electrical tape and give it more of a balloon shape. So I am pulling the electrical tape tight and trying to make the little bulges of the pumpkin, and it actually worked really well. but it did take three tries. So my advice to you is don't pull back on the tape. Whatever you do, just don't pull back. Once it's down, it's down. You don't want to accidentally pull back on the tape, and it should be fine. So I didn't pull it quite as tight on this last one either, and I think that might have been a little bit of a saving grace too, although you don't get quite as much of the pumpkin shape, but it does look much less like a balloon than the other one. So up to you, just giving you options and ideas here. So again, I'm going to do a light coat of paper mache. I live in the prairies, so everything dries super fast here. Like this was dry within 2 hours. I know like if you live in a humid area, it's gonna take longer, but anyway, so I've done some pruning on my crab tree outside. I have a ornamental flowering crab and I had to prune it a bit. So I cut off one big limb that was down too far and just getting in the way. And so this is all just from basically one limb. And then I went over to my dad's and used his bandsaw and just cut them into little slices. So it did take a couple hours, but it was actually like super therapeutic. I really enjoyed it. I haven't been doing a lot of woodwork lately. And like if you are a woodworker, you'll already know this, but you really just kind of go into a Zen mode and it's just very relaxing and very calming. So I would recommend this, and like a bandsaw or a scroll saw is such a nice thing to start with because they're so much less scary than a chop saw or a table saw. Like there's no kickback to them or anything to worry about that way. So I've been using a scroll saw since I was a kid and I just love it. I find it very therapeutic. So with the bigger slices from the bigger branch, I laid those out on the bumps of the pumpkin. So just kind of randomly onto the bulging parts of the pumpkin. And then again, I just glued on a stem, so a little bit of wood glue and a little bit of hot glue to just hold it for the moment. And then I'm just going in with my brush, filling in parts with wood glue. Wood glue is so strong. Like if you're using wood or paper or anything kind of porous like that, wood glue is as strong as it gets. And I actually used wood glue to do the paper mache as well, so it's very strong. Like it's holding together super well, and this feels very solid when it's done. And then it just kind of worked like a puzzle, like just trying to fit in all those little slices and, you know, having all the different shapes like from that limb, because there was, you know, the big limb right off the tree and then all the little branches that come from it. And I just tried to get a nice variety. So I didn't have quite enough to finish the bottom, so I am gonna have to finish this project after the fact. Like I'll go back when I have time next week to go in and finish the bottom, but it looks beautiful. You'll see it looking all beautiful anyway. So I had just enough to kind of finish this ring up, but had to leave a little bit at the bottom. And if I didn't tell you guys, you probably wouldn't even know, but I'm just admitting that I didn't quite eye this up to be as much wood as I thought it was, but I love the results. I hope you guys like it too. Let me know what you think. It's a great fun project, even for kids, like as long as you're supervising them. And if you do have a scroll saw or a bandsaw, those are such a great way to get used to woodworking, and it's wonderful. It's really therapeutic, so I definitely recommend it. And then for the last pumpkins, so just look for a nice swampy area like this, and then we're just gonna gather up some of these reeds, like the reeds that grow with the bulrushes, and then just pick them while they're still green and have some flexibility to them. And we're gonna weave them and braid them while they're green and then let them dry. So I've been really inspired by this creative basket weaving book that I got from the library. And I think I'm gonna have to purchase it because I really like it. There's so many ideas in it. And that's what inspired me to use these cattail leaves. Or leaves, reeds, I'm not really sure what to refer to them as, but I'm just gonna walk you through these weaving some reeds and creating these woven type pumpkins that are so popular right now. I see them everywhere and they're quite expensive, so this was kind of a fun project to be able to create for just this $1 basically for this pumpkin form. This is just one of the carvable styrofoam pumpkin forms from Dollar Tree, and I just gave it that same mist tint of paint, I just added in a little bit of leaf green and a little touch of the caramel tan, and I added in a little bit of baking soda just to make it a little bit thicker and kind of cover up any little I don't know, like little marks or whatever that are in the styrofoam. And then I wanted a little practice pumpkin, so that's what you see me doing here. If you do this, please be super careful. I'm used to carving, I did it for years, so I'm very comfortable with a box cutter or an X-Acto knife, but you need to be careful. They're very dangerous and very sharp, so please don't be this comfortable unless you've used one a lot. So just as a word of caution. So I just gave that a coat of the baking soda paint as well. And then for the reeds, so I'm just going to show you here with these leaves, I just split them right down the middle with my fingernail. So if you run your fingernail just straight down the middle, they're so easy to split and they follow the vein that's in them. So they always split right down the line that you stick your fingernail in. And there's like a little bit of a soft cellulosey feel right at the bottom of the leaf, but they get very thin at the top and they rip so easily. So I just split them all in half, and then it made them much more easy to work with. So it makes them much more manageable for braiding. So I live in a very dry climate. I'm not worried about these molding at all. In the book, she does describe like that you can dry them and then reintroduce moisture just to weave them. But you'd have to like learn more about that if you do live in a really humid climate. But here I am, I'm just gonna weave these three together in a very intricate weave here. So it's like a folding, it kind of works out almost like folding paper is what it reminded me of, because they're so flat. So the hardest part is just getting it started. But then once you have the braids started, they just naturally fold for you, just like folding paper. And this got to be very therapeutic as well. I ended up doing about, I would say 24, like about 24 braids, like all together to do the one pumpkin. And then I ended up doing two. So I had to go and harvest some more cattail leaves a couple nights later, but just to kind of give you an idea, like I had just grabbed that handful there that you saw, and that was plenty to do the little tiny practice pumpkin and the full pumpkin that I did as well. So you can see up close there, it just folds so nicely. It's so wonderful and it's so meditative. Like you start to think, would I know how to make a basket? How did people know how to make a basket? Like you would have been so dependent on your ancestors to teach you everything, right? And back 5,000 years ago. Anyway, just grateful that we can just buy one now. So here I am on this little tiny practice pumpkin here, and I just wanted to practice the way that I was going to lay out the braids. So I started with two meeting in the grooves of the pumpkin, and that seemed to work out well. So this was great to practice on and figure that out. So just two that meet directly in the lowest part in those little divots in the pumpkin. So that's what I'm going to do on the bigger one as well. And then just work your way up the bumps of the pumpkin, and it kind of accentuates those bumps as well, like makes them appear larger, and then you're not losing that pumpkin shape. So just kind of showing you how I would tuck them into the insides. I actually got this idea of using the pool noodle from my friend Emily at Farm Charm Chic. I saw her use a little pool noodle to wrap some yarn around and make a little pumpkin, and it was so cute. So I'm just using my wood burning tool to make the holes in this styrofoam pumpkin. This is just that Dollar Tree pumpkin. And I thought, like, this is a good size hole. I made them about almost 1.5 inches for putting in the reeds into, but it got very tight. So I'm gonna show you, I actually show you another easier option for these reeds as well, but we'll walk through that as we get there. So same thing on this one. I'm gonna go in with those flat braids, and I'm gonna meet up two in the divots, like the the lower parts of the pumpkin ridges, if that makes sense. Like, you'll see here in just a minute, I'm going to show you how I laid the two meeting up in each divot in the pumpkin. So there we go. Hopefully you can tell what I'm doing. And then I'm going to just build them up, like layering them just a tiny bit and moving my way up the bump of the pumpkin, and it'll just really accentuate that and give it more detail. So here you can see I'm just overlaying the braids on top of each other, just that little bit, just so I get nice full coverage over the whole pumpkin. So these pumpkins from Dollar Tree don't have like super defined bumps, but like they are there. It's just enough, and doing this technique really accentuated that. So as you can see, that hole is really filling up with all those braids. So it does get pretty tight towards the end. And also I saved the fatter ends of the braids. So I started with all the thinner ends, and then I ended with all the fatter ends, like the bottoms of the leaves, if that makes sense. Just to help really accentuate those bumps and the shape of the pumpkin. Yeah, it's so dry here that these were like almost dry as I was working. But I know it would be a different story in a humid climate. So you would just have to learn about like drying them out, you know, having air under them and on top of them. And then she talks about using like a damp towel or damp rags to reintroduce some moisture into them for just like 20 minutes before you're gonna braid them and work with them. But she has so many techniques, like for bark and all kinds of things. It's such an interesting book. So anyway, this is the highly detailed Artsy Maddie special. I don't know what to call it, but I kind of realized that most of you probably wouldn't be up for this. Like, it is quite time consuming doing those braids. Also very therapeutic and mindful, but I just wanted to give you another option. So another option is to just bundle up 12 of those split leaves. So I have 12 halves of leaves, and then I'm going to group them into groups of 4. So you'll see me here, I just put 4 into 3 sections, and then I just do a rudimentary braid. So it doesn't go like quite as smoothly as the other braiding, but it does work. So I just wanted to give you another option. So, and then as you work it, like with your hand, and you can kind of squish the braids together and kind of, you know, mash them with your fingers and make it a little bit softer, you will get that braid shape, and this does work. So I just wanted to show you this little bit easier way to do it. So I did a whole bunch of these too. I think I needed at least a dozen. I want to say it might have been more than a dozen of the braids. So that would be the full braid from the bottom to the tip of the leaf. And then you can get 2 strips down your pumpkin per braid, if that makes sense, like per bottom leaf and the top of the leaf. So you'll wrap it around the pumpkin twice with that. So then I knew to make this hole bigger, and especially for these bigger, fatter braids, so I made them almost 2 inches, like they're just under 2 inches on both the top and the bottom. And be sure to use this burning tool in a well-ventilated area, or even outside would be best. So now I'm gonna mix my paint just a little bit greener, and then I will also do a little paint technique on it before we start as well, but I knew that it was gonna show through on this pumpkin, so I just wanted it to be a better match. So I did add in more green for this one. So again, like you would just use an off-white or a cream color, add in some leafy green, and then a little bit of the like caramel tan just to kind of dirty it up a little bit. And then I just did some streaking while it was still wet of almost just the direct green color, just to be sure that it was going to blend in and match well. So apparently if you don't leave these reeds out in the sun, they will keep their color for quite a while. So I'm fine with that. I love the green color of them, but if you didn't, you could definitely just bleach them with the sun. There's no better bleach than the sun. And then same thing, just folding these in. Now this trick, this did work a little bit better because I painted this after. I actually painted the inside of that hole that we had melted as well, and it actually protected the raw foam from the hot glue gun. And I'm just realizing, I also forgot to tell you guys that I am just using my hot glue gun on a low temperature, just to be sure, because this is foam and it does have a little bit of a skin on it and with the paint, but I just wanted to be sure that it wasn't melting the foam. So I am just using my glue gun on a low temperature. So I did the same thing with this, although it's just one braid down the divot part of the pumpkin, and then I saved the bigger, fatter part of the leaves, so the bottoms of the leaves, to do the bump on the pumpkin, just to give it that same definition if I could, just to accentuate the bumps in the shape. And you can see, I thought maybe that hole was going to be too big, but it wasn't, because once you start using those bottom leaf parts, they are thick. So it just fit. It's a nice tight fit in there. And then I just stuck some branches in. I didn't even have to use glue because like they are in there like good. It was really tight to get them in there. So there they are. There's the more detailed version on the right, and then kind of an easier option there on the left. I think they both look great. So like either way, if you're up for doing lots of braiding, like it is very therapeutic and fun to do those braids. And you might like it. It might be kind of a nice mindful exercise. So here they are. Hopefully you guys like them. And if you're into kind of that boho natural, I know everyone's kind of doing a lot of neutrals right now. So I thought these were kind of nice neutral, nice textures to add into your little vignettes and with your pumpkins. So I'm sure all these other creators have some wonderful ideas to share with you too about pumpkins. Be sure to check out that playlist. I'm sure it's going to be full of wonderful inspiration, and hopefully I've inspired you today as well. And if you haven't subscribed already to my channel, I hope you'll consider it. And if you are subscribed, thank you so much for coming back and being so supportive and kind. I have such a great crafty tribe. And just be sure you can turn that notification bell on to be notified anytime I do upload a video. I don't quite have a schedule yet. I'm still just loving being a part of these challenges, and any collaborates I get to do like this are super fun. So not quite on a schedule yet, but if you hit that notification bell, that will let you know. And also, if I do change up this wood pumpkin, I will be posting a picture of it on Instagram. I am thinking about staining it a little bit, and it might be kind of an odd color, so you might want to see that. So if you haven't connected with me on Instagram, that would be wonderful too. And it's just Artsy Maddie. I'll have the link for that in my description box as well. And just thank you so much for joining me today, and be sure to check out the playlist. Thank you so much for watching.